Year 323 BC. Nebuchadnezzar II's palace. One of the great conquerors of the ancient world, Alexander the Great loses his life due to a severe fever. After his death, the wars over Alexander's heritage resulted in the collapse of the empire and the emergence of independent states within its territory. One of such states was Caucasian Albania, which was located in the southern Caucasus region, which is known the territory of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Caucasian Albania was located in the region extending from Derbent in the north to the Aras River in the south, the Caspian Sea in the east, and the borders of Georgia in the west from the early 4th century BC until 8th century AD. Throughout the centuries, except minor territorial changes in the struggle against the Roman Empire, Parthia, the Sassanids, the Byzantine Empire, the Khazar Khaganate, and the Arab Caliphate, it could be stated that the borders of Caucasian Albania encompassed the territory of modern-day Azerbaijan. The present-day Republic of Azerbaijan and the Azerbaijani people are the direct historical heirs of the rich Albanian ethnocultural heritage, as well as the ancient and early medieval civilization of Caucasian Albania, shaped by various ethnic groups on its territory in subsequent centuries. The population of Caucasian Albania primarily consisted of various ethnic groups, including Caucasian Albanians, Gargarians, Udi people, Lezgians, Gels, Iranian-speaking Tats, Talish people, Kurds and Turkish-speaking Hund, Savars, and Khazars. It is not a coincidence that the Greek historian and geographer Strabo noted in his work that as many as 26 languages were spoken in Caucasian Albania. The country's ethnocultural landscape featured a diverse range of religious beliefs within its population. Among the population, there were followers of various beliefs, including polytheism, Judaism, Mithraism, Tengrism, and Zoroastrianism. It was in the 1st century AD when the spread of a new religion, Christianity, began in the country. The spread of Christianity in Caucasian Albania occurred in 2 stages. In the first stage, the country started receiving the first Christian missionaries, apostles, and their disciples from Jerusalem and Syria, leading to the establishment of the first Christian communities. This period is associated with the Jesus Christ's apostles Thaddeus and Bartholomew, as well as Thaddeus' disciple Elisha. The second stage of the spread of Christianity started in the 4th century AD. During this stage, the spread of Christianity is attributed to the efforts of the scholar Gregory and the Albanian ruler Ernair. In the year 313, when Albanian ruler Ernair declared Christianity as the state religion of Caucasian Albania, the construction of Christian temples accelerated in various parts of the country. Christian churches and monasteries were constructed on the sites of former independent pagan temples. Currently, in many areas of the Republic of Azerbaijan, including the liberated territories of Karabakh and eastern Zangezur from the occupation by Armenian armed forces, there are numerous Christian churches that belong to the rich Albanian architectural heritage. However, in the late 20th century, the occupation of Azerbaijan's historical territories of Karabakh and eastern Zangezur by Armenian armed forces had a detrimental impact on the preservation of the Albanian churches in the region. Indeed, the Armenians not only halted at the occupation of historical Azerbaijani territories but also engaged in various forms of vandalism targeting Azerbaijani architecture in these regions. In Karabakh and eastern Zangezur, Muslim monuments were demolished, and Albanian churches were falsely portrayed as Armenian monuments with the support of the Armenian state, facilitated by the efforts of the Gregorian Church, thus presenting them to the world as Armenian heritage. The Armenians attempted to justify their occupation of Azerbaijani territories, known for their rich Caucasian architectural heritage, by falsely claiming that these lands had belonged to them since ancient times. However, historical sources contradicted this claim. The Armenians are not the indigenous population of Asia Minor and the Caucasus. According to the Armenian historians, Armenians trace their origins to the Phrygian tribes, who initially lived in the Balkan Peninsula, later merging with the mass migration of the Sumerians and eventually moving to Asia Minor in the 13th century BC. Subsequently, a portion of them migrated eastward and settled along the banks of the Euphrates River. Until the 19th century, Armenians primarily resided in regions outside the borders of the Caucasus, such as the Armenian highlands in Asia Minor, around Lake Van, and along the banks of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. It was only after the conclusion of the Russian-Persian and Russian-Ottoman Wars, which resulted in Russian victories in 1826 to 1828 and 1829, that the migration of Armenian families to the Caucasus began. The Tsarist government sought to create a religious support for itself in northern Azerbaijan through this method. The migration of Armenians to the Caucasus and the Armenian Gregorian Church's desire to assimilate with the existing Albanian churches in the Caucasus later contributed to the downfall of the Albanian Apostolic Church. In 1836, with the suppression of the Gregorian Church and a decree by Russian Emperor Nicholas I, the Albanian Church was abolished by the Russian Synod and handed over to the authority of the Armenian Church. Following the cessation of the Albanian Church's activities, the process of Armenianization of Albanian churches commenced, and this process intensified over time.
One of the primary carriers of customs and tradition is the Udi people. They are direct descendants of the Albanian autocephalous church. It is known that the Albanian monarchy and the Albanian church had their own Catholicosate. Today, this Christian Albanian heritage also present in the Karabakh region. In this region, numerous Albanian churches and monasteries are situated, all of which belong to the Albanian Church. In the year 313, Christianity became the official religion of the Albanian state. Currently, Christian Albanian monuments are preserved. These monuments are not only located in Karabakh but throughout the entire Caucasus region, and ongoing efforts are made for their restoration and preservation.
The distortion of the history of Caucasian Albania, especially the process of pillaging the counterparts and other elements of Albanian churches located in Karabakh and eastern Zangezur, continued even during the Soviet Empire era in the 20th century. The original Albanian counterparts were stolen and transported to Echmidzin Cathedral. During that period, Armenian Catholics attempted to obtain permission to completely destroy the ancient Albanian episcopal complex located in the Gankasar Monastery in Kelbajar region. However, due to serious objections from Azerbaijani scholars, this falsification attempt was prevented. The renowned Orientalist scholar Joseph Orbilai, during his archaeological research at the Gankasar Monastery, extensively examined the inscriptions on the temple's walls, revealing that the majority of the churches and monasteries in Karabakh had been falsified. During his work at Gankasar, he discovered priceless evidence and inscriptions that affirmed these lands belonged to the Albanian Church and the Albanian people who governed the Alban Principality. The author exposed the process of how the Albanian monuments in Karabakh were assimilated into Armenian culture and also revealed all the actions of the Armenian Church to manipulate the inscription at Gankasar. However, the scholar faced serious persecution and pressure during the Soviet era, which forced him to refrain from publishing the work. The decline of the Soviet Union in the late 20th century and the economic and political crisis in the Azerbaijani SSR led to the increased activity of the leadership of the Armenian SSR and Armenian terrorist organizations. Territorial claims of the historical Karabakh region of Azerbaijan were put forth by Armenian nationalists. A policy of ethnic cleansing and genocide was implemented against the Azerbaijani population of Karabakh. As a result of the First Karabakh War, which covered the period from 1991 to 1994, 20% of Azerbaijani territory was occupied by Armenian armed forces. In the undeclared conflict, 20,000 Azerbaijanis lost their lives, 5,000 became disabled, and 100,000 were injured. The number of refugees and internally displaced persons exceeded 1 million. On May 12, 1994, a ceasefire was reached along the front line, initiating a protracted negotiation process. During this period, Armenia engaged in acts of vandalism against the historical and cultural heritage in the territories of Azerbaijan that are recognized by the UN and other countries. Mosques were either demolished or repurposed. In short, the religious sentiments of a nation were insulted. Cemeteries and the house museums of prominent statesmen as well as cultural and scientific figures of Azerbaijan were dismantled. Roof coverings and building materials of houses were plundered. The only musical instrument factory located in the Caucasus, in Shusha, and the unique bread museum in Agdam were left in an unrecognizable state of ruin. However, following the Second Karabakh War that started on September 27, 2020, lasting for 44 days and concluding with the victory of the Azerbaijani army, the nefarious plans of the Armenian leadership were fully revealed. Evidence emerged of the establishment of special workshops with the purpose of assimilating Albanian monuments into Armenian culture in the liberated territories. In these workshops, which were engaged in the arrangement of Armenian kochkars, crossstones, prepared Armenian kochkars were immersed in special solutions and pressed into the soil for a period, giving them an antique appearance. These stones were then used during the falsification of Albanian monuments. Instances of the utilization of Azerbaijani tombstone marbles for grinding purpose were also discovered. These were cases of changing place names. Currently, the Azerbaijani state is restoring scattered cities and towns, including monuments that have been subject to Armenian falsification. Such monuments are found in many areas of Karabakh and eastern Zangezur. These monuments are considered the oldest witnesses of Azerbaijani history.
Alban irsinin bizim tariximizdə bildiyiniz kimi çox böyük yeri var.
The Alban heritage plays a significant role in our history. The Alban heritage is not only ours but also an integral part of world civilization. Unfortunately, the process of Armenian falsification of the Alban heritage has been ongoing for many years. Indeed, after our lands were occupied by the Armenians, they carried out various acts of falsification on the Alban monuments that rightfully belong to us in those areas. These temples could be observed in Tu, Laçın, Kelbahar, and generally in many of the regions in that area. After the Azerbaijani army liberated these territories from occupation, those areas could be visited. During these visits, we witnessed those falsifications firsthand.
Ərazilərə səfər etdikdə biz bir daha bu saxtakarlıqların yaxından şahid olduq.
Karabakh Economic Region. Tartar. Monastery of Saint Elisha. The monument located between the villages of Sugovushan and Tepekend on the banks of the Tartar River is believed to date back to the 5th century AD. It is constructed in a challenging location with complex terrain, situated at an altitude of 2,000 meters above sea level in a remote area. The monastery, perched on the slopes of the Muravdak range and elevated at the summit of a high mountain, is surrounded by sheer cliffs and dense forests. Additionally, it is enclosed by sturdy fortress walls on 3 sides. The monument, named after Saint Elisha, was originally a place of ancient worship predating the spread of Christianity. The Albanian author Moses Kalin Katuklu mentions in his work History of Albania that the temple was originally affiliated with the Nizmira Brotherhood. After a portion of the remains of Saint Elisha was brought from Urekthang Monastery in the Talish village of Tartar district to this highland, Alban King Vashagan III had a monastery built in honor of Saint Elisha. Therefore, the monastery formerly known as Nizmira began to be called the Monastery of Saint Elisha. During the 30 years of Armenian occupation, the Armenians also used this monument for their political purposes. Specifically, the tomb monument of Vashagan III, which was originally present in the monastery, was destroyed, and the Alban crosses from different parts of the monastery were removed and replaced with Armenian crosses. Agdam District. Beşiktaş Church. Beşiktaş Church, located in the village of Şabulaygian Agdam, is an Albanian basilica dating back to the 5-7th centuries. According to Karabakh, the church was constructed by the Albanian ruler Vash II from the Arsacid dynasty. Barkudarian notes that during the time of Vash II, there was cross-shaped monastery on the site of the church, referred to as Vankasar. Despite its small size, the monument boasts tall walls constructed from neatly cut grey stones. According to popular folklore, it was believed that at the ancient monastery on the top of the mountain, an infertile woman prayed endlessly and was granted the ability to have children. According to the legend, the woman sought refuge in the monastery and raised her newborn in a stone cradle here to protect the child from Arab invaders. Due to this belief among the people, the mountain came to be known as Beşiktaş, which translates to Cradle Mountain. Another legend suggests that the mountain and the infants here were protected by snakes. Researcher Zelikian Polski notes that there were indeed many such tales of snakes in the Beşiktaş region. During the occupation, the Armenians presented the Beşiktaş monastery as an ancient Armenian church.
Erməni dili Hind-Avropa dili qrupuna aiddir. Amma Alban dili
Armenian language belongs to the Indo-European language family, while Albanian is part of the Caucasian language group.
Digər fərq onların məzhəbləri arasında, yəni Qriqoryanlıq və Alban kilsəsi arasındakı fərqləri biz nəzər salsaq görərik ki,
another difference is between their sects. Armenian Gregorians belong to the Monophysite branch of Christianity,
amma Alban Apostol kilsəsi Diofizitdir,
which asserts the single divine nature of Jesus Christ, whereas Albanians, historically, adhere to Diophysitism, acknowledging two distinct natures in Jesus, half human and half divine.
Bu da Alban və Erməni kilsəsi arasındakı əsas fərqlərdən biridir. Xaçlarında fərqlər var.
Another difference lies in the design of their crosses. Armenian crosses tend to be bulkier, while Albanian crosses are relatively slender. Additionally, it's worth noting that Albanian churches often feature depictions of birds, trees, and various elements of nature in both their interiors and exteriors, whereas Armenian churches typically do not include such depictions.
Qarabağdakı kilsələrdə, xristian kilsələrində, həm də Azərbaycanın müxtəlif bölgələrindəki kilsələrdə biz bu kimi nümunələrə rast gələ bilərik.
Kocaeli District, Boverkanaving Monastery. In 1992, the area was occupied by Armenian terrorists, and horrific acts of genocide were committed against its population, reminiscent of events like Kocaeli, Lidisa and Orator. The territory of Kocaeli is considered one of Azerbaijan's rich regions, known for its historical and religious architectural monuments. In this regard, Albanian monuments also a unique place. The Boverkanaving or Bagurkan temple complex, located in the Dagdagan village of Kocaeli district, is one of the legacies of the Albanian heritage. The monument dates back to the 12th century and is located on Mount Boverkan at an altitude of 1,700 meters above sea level, within a wooded area. The construction of the monastery, with its unique and original architectural design, took place in the 17th century under the supervision of Malik Bagur, a descendant of the Veranda rulers. This construction occurred on the site of an ancient abandoned building, hence it's associated with Malik Bagur's name. The monument features a unique and original architectural structure. The Boverkanaving Monastery complex consists of a church and several residential and civic buildings. The church is enclosed by fortress walls. Although Makar Barkudarian mentioned seeing two inscribed crossstones on the monastery grounds, these stones have unfortunately not survived to the present day. Kocaeli District. Amaras Monastery. The relief of Kocaeli District, considered one of the birthplaces of human civilization, is primarily mountainous. The southeastern branches of the Karabakh mountain range transformed the terrain of this region into a rugged landscape. In this area, one frequently encounters caves where the earliest humans resided, remnants of ancient residential settlements, traces of early urban civilizations, impressive fortress walls, and rare examples of various periods of cultural heritage. The Azik Cave, an ancient geological formation dating back approximately 1.5 million years, located near the village of Salakatan in Kurache Valley. Moreover, Tagler Cave with historical significance is also located in this region. A significant portion of the Albanian temples in Karabakh is also found within the territory of Kojavan district. Among these temples, the Amaras Monastery, dating back to the 4th century AD, stands out prominently. The Amaras Monastery, located in the village of Juchu in the Kojavan district, was constructed on the right bank of the Amaras River in the Mughan Plain. The 7th century author Moses Kalan-Katuklu mentions in his work that the foundation of the monastery, located near the city of Amaras, was laid by the Gregory, a preacher and scholar known for spreading Christianity in the Haban province. This monastery, regarded as one of the earliest Christian places of worship in Albania, underwent reconstruction in the 10th century while maintaining its original architectural style with minor additions. In 1968, Azerbaijani archaeologist Rashid Goyashev, who conducted research on the Karabakh temples, identified the ancient temple site during excavations at the Amaras Monastery. He uncovered that the monastery grounds served as a significant religious center for the clergy before the spread of Christianity. Barkudarian confirms that the region was formerly inhabited by Zoroastrians and suggests that this temple belonged to them. However, after the dissolution of the Albanian Autocephalous Church by the Russian Synod in 1836, the Amaras Monastery, like other Albanian temples, underwent extensive reconstruction by the Gregorian Church in 1858. As a result, the ancient Albanian temple was completely Armenianized, resulting in the destruction of its inscriptions and the stela dating back to 925 AD that once stood on the monastery grounds. The monument's interior and exterior underwent significant alterations during the Soviet era. During the period of occupation, Armenians had the opportunity to carry out the extensive reconstruction of the monastery.
The Armenians have been perpetuating an ideology that was originally formulated by individuals such as Nikita Emin, Mikhail Chamchian, and Shanazarian since the early 19th century. So, what is this ideology? It revolves around distorting the history of territories belonging to the Turks and Azerbaijanis and making territorial claims over these regions. What makes it interesting is that they do so without presenting any evidence, proof, maps, or similar substantiating elements. Do you grasp the extent of this distortion?
Starting from the year 2000, substantial modifications were made to the architectural structure of the Amaras Monastery. The inscriptions on the monastery walls were completely replaced, and the stone of the entrance gate was removed. Gravestones within the monastery were also renewed, and several inscriptions and counterfeit crossstones, asserting Armenian ownership, were placed on the walls of the monument. Lakan District, Agaglan Temple. In the year 1920, the Zangezur region of Azerbaijan was divided following the occupation of Soviet Russia. The western parts of Zangezur were given to Armenia, including Lakan, while the eastern part of Zangezur remained within the borders of the Azerbaijan SSR. In the Lakan district, located in the eastern part of the Zangezur Plateau, there were hundreds of historical architectural monuments. However, during the occupation period, more than 200 locally significant monuments, some of which were considered rare gems of global architecture, fell victim to Armenian vandalism. Similar to all historical and cultural monuments in the Lakan region, Alban temples have also fallen victim to acts of vandalism by Armenian nationalists. These temples have been falsified and presented to the world as Armenian monuments. One such monument is the Agaglan Temple located in the village of Kosalar in the Lakan district. Dating back to the 5th and 6th centuries AD, this temple is located in the banks of the Agaglan River. According to legend, Agaglan was a defender of the local population and a courageous warrior who perished in battle. He was buried at this sacred site. According to a local legend associated with the Agoglan temple, Agoglan would reportedly appear 3 times a day at this shrine. During the remaining times, he would retreat into the forest and lead a solitary life. In the 4th century, after the Christian educator Gregory preached Christianity in Albania and made this place his residence, Agoglan disappeared. In 2006, allegedly on the basis of donations from foreign church officials, Armenians placed numerous fake stone inscriptions on the walls of this monument, purportedly indicating its affiliation with the Gregorian Christian tradition. Kalbajar District, Kadavang Monastery. Located in the village of Vang, in the Tartar River Valley, the Kadavang Monastery is an ancient religious complex that bears traces of beliefs predating Christianity. Among the people, Kadavang, meaning Temple of God, is the name given to this sanctuary, and represents one of the earliest Albanian Christian religious monuments, dating back to the time of the Apostles. It is noted in the sources that the foundation of the complex was laid by Dodi, a disciple of Fatii, who was one of the apostles of Jesus Christ. The complex includes 9 structures, namely, the ancient church, Arzukanam Monastery, an additional hall added to Arzukanam Monastery, a small basilica with a narthex, Hasan Jalal Monastery, St. Gregory Monastery, a spring, a school building, and a gallery. In the construction of the monastery, stones were used from the banks of the Tartar River, as well as local black basalt stones, fired bricks, and decorative ornaments. The roofs of the buildings are covered with tiles and stone slabs. These impressive walled religious complexes served as not only places of worship but also as shelters for seers and the inhabitants of surrounding villages during times of military conflicts. The Kadavang Temple, besides being the residence of the Albanian bishop, also functioned as an important cultural and educational center. To see that the Zudavang Temple has no connection with modern Armenians, it is sufficient to look at the inscriptions bearing the names of rulers and ruling families depicted on its walls. Names like Hasan, Arzukatan, Minakatan, Kachabe, and other Turkic names indicate that the founders of these churches were of Turkic origin. Starting from 1836, due to the confessional policies of Russian Tsarism, the Albanian temples of Karabakh, including the Kadavang Monastery, were placed under the authority of the Armenian Echmidzin Church. Since then, this monastery, like other Albanian temples, has fallen into a state of neglect and decay. After the Treaty of Turkmenchay in 1828 and the Treaty of Adrianople in 1829, Tsarist Russia, with the aim of establishing religious support in the South Caucasus, relocated numerous Armenian families from Iran and Anatolia to Karabakh. Regarding how the relocated Armenians took over the Albanian monasteries, Barkudarian writes, "Unfortunately, these magnificent monasteries are scattered and destroyed, and the vast lands gifted to the monasteries are seized." These pieces of information clearly illustrate how the Armenians plundered the ethnocultural heritage of Albanian Christians between 1828 and 1895, especially during the years when Kalbajar was under occupation. Unlawful restoration works were conducted at the Kadavang Monastery, just like with other Albanian monuments in Karabakh. Numerous pieces of art, frescoes depicting Nias Vakhtang, Arzukanam and their 2 sons, religious images, and inscriptions were looted during this period. Azerbaijan has been recognized historically as a place where various civilizations intersect and where an atmosphere of interfaith mutual respect exists. The development of religious tolerance in Azerbaijan, a multi-ethnic and multi-confessional country, has been significantly influenced by the country's geographical location and the ethnic and religious diversity of its population. Consequently, a commitment to tolerant values has become one of the fundamental characteristics shaping the way of life for the people living here. The coexistence and development of non-Muslim communities alongside the Muslim community in Azerbaijan from ancient times to the present day also serve as an example of the country's respect for diverse religious beliefs, reflecting the religious tolerance of Muslim states that have existed in Azerbaijan throughout history. In Azerbaijan, the free practice of worship places belonging to different religions has been ensured at all stages of its history, and this continues to be the case today. The Azerbaijani state not only supports places of worship related to Islam but also constructs and restores places of worship for other religions. In Baku, the restoration and preservation of places of worship for Zoroastrians, such as the Ateshka Temple, the Armenian Church in the city center, the Keçikidig Monastery complex on the border with Georgia, as well as various churches and synagogues across the country, are just a few examples among hundreds. All of these efforts exemplify the clear respect of the Azerbaijani state and its people for the world's cultural heritage and universal values.